Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. So today I want to talk to you about something that I almost guarantee you face in your life, and it's a real drain on your time and energy, and that is managing your email inbox. I want to share with you some practical tips on how you can get control of it and use it to your advantage instead of having it use you all the time, where you feel like you're always chasing your tail and it's just a drain on your time and energy. So the first thing you got to realize is that an email inbox is really a convenient way of managing everyone else's agendas, not your agenda. So if you prioritize reacting to everything that comes in as soon as you possibly can, that is no way to manage your time or work. And there's some really bad advice out there about reaching inbox zero. This idea of having no unopened emails or no unanswered emails, and that being the goal. That's a terrible goal, okay? And I'm going to explain why as we go on. But I want to give you some practical tips for getting control of your email inbox. So let's start with tip number one. So the first thing is you should set aside specific times of your day where you will look at your inbox and where you will respond to important emails that come into your inbox. Leaving your email inbox open all day long, it is the worst thing you could do. Let's say you're using Gmail, but if you have Gmail open in a tab, and it's right there in your tab and you're working in some other tab in your browser, and you can easily go to Gmail and see all the new emails coming in, that's really bad, because that's going to constantly be distracting you from the task that you're supposed to be focusing on. So what you need to do instead is have either one or two, maybe even 3 times per day where you will log into your email and you will check and you will respond. So for example, that might be first thing in the morning. I wouldn't recommend that, because first thing in the morning you should be planning out your entire day and focusing on the true priorities. But let's say you get into work around 9 a.m. So you might say that from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. you're going to look at your emails and you're going to respond to what's truly important. That means that you physically log in at 10 a.m. You see everything there in front of you, and from 10 to 11, that is the cutoff. Anything else that comes in after 11 is going to have to wait until the next time range. Now that next time range, that might be after lunch. That could be from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. But if you leave that tab open all day long and you get notified, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about, but if you're getting notified every time that someone sends you an email, you are no longer in control of your day. You've got other people controlling your day and you are simply reacting. Now, just quickly, before we go on to the strategy, there's a really good tip in the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And he's talking about how you have these set times of the day that you will respond to email. And he suggests that what you do is you have an automated response going out that tells people what those times are. So you set up an automated response that will say something like, due to the high amount of emails I'm receiving, I only respond to emails between 10 and 11 a.m. and 1 and 2 p.m. If it is truly urgent and it cannot wait until those time ranges, then you can call me on this number. And if you do that, then people will understand that there's set periods of time that they can get to you, and most of them aren't going to call you on your number, because the fact is most of the things that they're sending you aren't truly urgent. They can wait a few hours. So let's move on to the next strategy, and that is turning off all instant notifications that alert you when you get a new email. I've got my phone right here, and I used to have on my phone a notification that would come up every single time I would get an email. And as my career really took off, and this is over the last 10 years, these notifications, they were just driving me crazy. I was getting them every few minutes. There would be a new email coming in. And same with even in Gmail, if I had it open in a tab and I was getting pinged or there was a sound notification every time an email came in, I was constantly being interrupted. And even though this is focused on email, this applies to everything. Skype included. I used to always have my Skype set to the green online, and so every single time I would get a message, I would hear that sound notification. And if you have these instant notifications on all day long, you're going to be interrupted. Now here's the problem with that. The way that our minds work is when we get into a task, we don't immediately get fully immersed into that task. Usually it takes some time for our brains to switch gears and get fully focused. So that amount of time could be 10 minutes, could be 15 minutes. But if you're trying to get into an important task and 3 minutes into it, that notification goes off, suddenly you're interrupted. Now you've got to start from zero and refocus on that task. The problem with these notifications is they won't allow you to get into deep work. Deep work is the truly important work. It's the work that you need time to get fully immersed into, and you need to fully concentrate on it. You can't be checking your Gmail tab or looking down at your phone every 5 minutes because you're getting an email notification. So turn off all notifications, all of them. So the next strategy is getting better at saying no. One of the biggest problems with email in the workplace is when someone gets a task that they don't want to do or they want to try and get out of, going to the email inbox and then contacting someone else in the organization and trying to pass the work off to them, or asking a question but doing it in a way where they're trying to transfer responsibility. That is very commonplace. And so if you always respond quickly, and if you want to be a people pleaser like a lot of us do, sometimes I can be a people pleaser, then it's very easy to say, oh yeah, sure, let me look at that, let me take over that task, or let me see if I can help you in some way. The problem with always being a yes person where you say yes to everything is that trains everyone else to come to you when they get some additional responsibility they don't want. So people are going to start to transfer all their tasks over to you. And before you know it, you're just going to have everyone else dumping their agenda, dumping their work onto you through email, and that's a very bad thing. So learn how to say no. Now, I understand in some workplaces, and depending on who's giving you that work, it's not always practical to just say no. But often you can politely say, I'm really busy with what I'm doing here and this is going to take me some time. If you need this immediately done, I'm not able to do it. I could look at it perhaps tomorrow. You say something like that where you're communicating, look, I'm not going to drop everything I'm doing right now to focus on your priority and put all of mine aside. I'll do it later. And what often ends up happening is if they need it urgently done, then they'll look for someone else, or they might even just do it themselves. Now, the next strategy is somewhat related to the first one about having time blocks that you respond to, but don't respond so quickly. There's this big perception in many workplaces that people who are responsive, that's a good thing. So if someone's extremely responsive, if you send them an email and they respond back in the next 10 minutes, often in many workplaces that can be seen as a good thing. That's not really a good thing, especially for a manager. If a manager with a lot of responsibility in a very important role is able to respond to every email within 10 minutes, then they're not focusing on what's truly important. They're looking down at their phone, watching for emails to come in. So being super responsive is not always a good thing. Yes, it's good if you're communicating with other people and they get back to you quickly, but you being that person who responds to everything and anything coming in very quickly, it's not a good thing, because what that does is it trains everyone that if they have a question or if they need something clarified, it's really easy to get to you. So if you're having a back and forth in email, you've got this email conversation going and they don't quite understand something, and they can quickly respond and know that you're going to respond in 10 minutes, they're going to do that. However, if they know that you don't immediately respond, you take your time, or you have set times in the day that you respond, what that does is when they're crafting their message, they're going to put more thought into it. They won't just fire off an email from their phone while they're standing in line at Starbucks and not put much thought into the message. Because often all the back and forth with email, it's due to misunderstandings or unclear communication. But if they know you don't respond so quickly, they will craft a more well thought out message, and there will be less back and forth needed. One of my mentors from a number of years ago, who I learned a lot from, his name is Dan Kennedy. What I always admired about Dan Kennedy, he was very old school, so he didn't really use email, but he made it deliberately hard for people to get to him. If you wanted to communicate with Dan Kennedy, you had to contact his assistant or his secretary, and only by fax. You could not email, you certainly could not text. It had to be by fax. And he does this up until this very day. And I remember going to one of his seminars many years ago, and he was explaining why. Why does he cling on to the old technology of fax? And he said that most people If they want to send him a message, that's going to be a major inconvenience to have to go and find a fax machine, to whoever actually still has one, and to have to write out a message and then print it off and then scan it in the fax machine and send it. That's a big inconvenience. And so most people who really need to get to Dan Kennedy for something important, they might do that. But if it's trivial, if it's not that important, if it's a 2-line email message they want to send to him, they're not going to go to the effort. So making it a little bit more difficult for people to get to you or to get an immediate response to you, that will act as a filter, and you'll find that over time, only more important messages, well thought out messages, will actually get to you. You will train everyone else. Don't send you petty little unclear messages that don't make sense. Put some thought into it. So the next strategy is, if you are using Gmail, Gmail is actually really good to manage your emails. It's not good for marketers. So marketers trying to get to someone through their Gmail, most of their emails are going to go into promotions, but for you, the end user, that's actually good. So what I do is I put all of the marketing messages I get, promotion messages, into the promotion section. You've got your main personal, you've got the social, and you've got the promotions tab. I move virtually everything over to the promotions. And the good thing about Gmail is when you move it over there, it's going to ask you, do you want to move all emails from this message to promotions? So in my personal email tab, I only get what's truly important. It's only real messages. I certainly don't get any marketing messages in that area. And that just keeps my inbox cleaner. And the last strategy I have for you is, don't be compelled to answer everything. I used to want to keep my email inbox completely clean and fully responded to. I wanted to respond to every message. And I remember about 10 years ago, I was starting to travel a lot more. So I would go on these work trips, and at first they would go for a few weeks. And then over time, they would literally go for months at a time. And when I was on the road, I wasn't very good at responding to all my emails. So I would get back home, I would go into my office, and for years, I would spend days or up to an entire week catching up on email, responding to every single email. And I didn't feel good until every email was responded to. It got to a point where I realized that this email inbox is controlling my whole life. I'm spending all of my time reacting, responding. So I learned to let go. I learned to be okay with most emails not being addressed or not being answered. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't answer important emails, but I am saying that most of the emails that come to you, they're not important. They're really not. And if you don't respond to them immediately, or if you take your time to respond to them, most of them will work themselves out. And I've found that by deliberately being a little bit slow to respond to certain emails is a good thing, because again, you train other people. Don't send you petty things. If they have something really important and it truly is urgent, sure, send it to you, but most things are not that important, and most things certainly are not that urgent. So to wrap this up, get full control of your email inbox, because if you don't, it will rule your life. I hope this has helped you in some way, and I'll see you tomorrow.